Alright, still on the types of matrices. Like I mentioned before, we'll be discussing 10 types of matrices. Alright, we have the row matrix, the column matrix, the rectangular matrix, the square matrix, the zero or the null matrix, diagonal matrix, scalar matrix, identity matrix, upper triangular matrix, and the lower triangular matrix. So in the previous video, we've looked at the row matrix, we've looked at column matrix, we've looked at rectangular matrix, and we've looked at the square matrix. Alright, so in this video, we're going to continue with the zero or null matrix. So zero or null matrix is a type of matrix in which all the elements are zero. So this is an example of a zero matrix or a null matrix. So in a zero matrix, all the elements are what? Zero. So you can see that all the elements in this matrix are zero. And that is why it is what? A zero matrix. Then we have the diagonal matrix. Diagonal matrix is a matrix in which all non-diagonal elements are zero. So all non-diagonal elements are what? Are zero. So where is the diagonal in this? Where are the diagonal elements? These are the diagonal elements. Alright? It's just as you have in a rectangle. When you have a rectangle or a square, or when you have a shape like this, the line that runs from one part of this rectangle to the other part, to the other edge, is the diagonal. Alright? So these are the diagonal elements. So in a diagonal matrix, all non-diagonal elements are zero. So you can see these are the diagonal elements. All the other elements aside from these diagonal elements are zero. So you can see 0, 0, 0, 0. Alright. So in a diagonal matrix, all non-diagonal elements are what? Are zero. Then we have the scalar matrix. So it's very important that you should know that the scalar matrix is a diagonal matrix in which all diagonal elements are equal. Alright, so you can see these diagonal elements. You can see the diagonal elements. They are equal. All of them are 4. Alright, so a scalar matrix is a diagonal matrix in which all diagonal elements are what? Are equal. So assuming we have these elements here to be 2, 2, 2, this would have been a scalar matrix. Alright, so it's very important that you should know that a scalar matrix is an example of what? A diagonal matrix in which all diagonal elements are equal. Alright, then we have the identity matrix. Then identity matrix or unit matrix is a type of scalar matrix in which diagonal elements equal to 1. So a scalar matrix with diagonal elements equal to what? To 1. So if I ask you what is identity matrix or unit matrix, an identity matrix is an example of a scalar matrix with diagonal elements equal to 1. So you can see that the diagonal elements are what? Are equal to 1. Alright, so this is an example of a unit matrix or an identity matrix. So just a quick one. If I have something like 2, 0, 0, 0, 0, 2, 0, 0, 2. What kind of matrix is this? So this matrix is an example of what? Of a scalar matrix, because the diagonal elements are what? Are equal. Alright, the diagonal elements are equal, and that is why it is what? A scalar matrix. Alright, so if I have this same matrix, let's say I now have this part to be, let's say I now have this part to be 9. This matrix is an example of a diagonal matrix. Diagonal matrix. And why is it a diagonal matrix? It is a diagonal matrix because the non-diagonal elements are what? 0. So you have 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So these are the diagonal elements. But if the diagonal elements are equal, it is a scalar matrix. If the diagonal elements are 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, then it is what? A unit or an identity matrix. Then The next type of matrix we'll be looking at is the upper triangular matrix. Upper triangular matrix. So in upper triangular matrix, all elements below the diagonal are 0. So you can see the diagonal elements. These are the diagonal elements. Alright. So all the elements below the diagonal elements or below the diagonal are what? Are 0. So you can see 0, 0, 0 here. Then in lower triangular matrix, all elements above the diagonal are 0. So these are the diagonal elements. Alright. So all the elements above these diagonal elements or above this diagonal are 0. So we have 0, 0, 0. This is why it is what? A lower triangular matrix. Alright. So you should know the difference between the lower and the upper triangular matrix and don't let it confuse you. When the elements below the diagonal are 0, when all the elements below the diagonal are 0, then it is an upper triangular matrix. So when you have them down, it is an upper triangular matrix. When you have them up, it is a lower triangular matrix. Alright? So in a lower triangular matrix, all the elements above the diagonal are 0. So this is the diagonal. All the elements above it are 0. In upper triangular matrix, all the elements below the diagonal are what? 0. So you can see all the elements here, 0. Alright? So having known all this, the next thing that we're going to look at is addition and subtraction of matrix.